And welcome to Footy Furnace. What an unbelievable weekend it was. An average margin of just 10.3 points. We haven't seen a round like it since 1970, round 10 in terms of how close those games were. And also a close VFL game this weekend as well, Hurdy, in the Port Melbourne.
Yeah, the great Borough had a draw. Unfortunately, didn't get across the line, but very good day.
You were leading a bit early at the game.
I think we were 37 points up at one stage. Yeah, we coughed one up. It was with the win, we were 37 points up, but onto the AFL, I think.
And Jimmy, no stranger to close games yourself. Welcome to you.
Thanks, Tom. And speaking of close games, here's Sunday's results. 3 matches, combined margin 6 points, 2 points, 4 points and a draw.
Yeah, ridiculous. So a draw in Tasmania. We're not far away from talking about that. The Giants, for the 5th game in a row against Geelong at GMHBA Stadium, they upset them, 4 points. And then Richmond, Tom Brown, the hero, with a tackle, possibly the tackle of the year, 2 points, the margin there. We have an action-packed show tonight. Don't miss this. This is the heat map we can look forward to this evening. And it's a show that has plenty of big talking points. Tassie, GMHBA, Tom Brown, as I mentioned. The Sizzling Suns as well up north. Don't let them go underneath the radar, Hurdy. And also Collingwood on Thursday night, going across to Fremantle, a 5-day break plus travel, getting the job done.
And with their outs too, and with the injuries to the game, and side bottom line, a great game. It was a terrific win. Just showed the Collingwood system is really strong.
Let's go straight to North versus Brisbane in Tasmania. It was the first draw of the season. Hurdy, take us through the key moments thanks to Lexus of Blackburn.
Yeah, the key moments of the fourth quarter. North Melbourne supporters have got to be pretty happy. They're almost won against Essendon. Probably should have won against Essendon last week. And this week to draw with the reigning premiers, what a fantastic draw it was. And you look at the key moments. Jack Darling being brought across Jimmy to really look after Nick Larky and take a lot of heat off him, kicking the first goal from a really good contested mark. We see Eric Hookwood is having a really good season, marks inside 50 and extended the Brisbane lead by 10 points with a fantastic goal. And Luke Parker, again, another one of those guys who's been brought in to help the young Roos. Terrific tackle there and goal. And this is when we thought the Roos were a real chance. Free kick there, Zach Bailey putting Jacob Sandy getting the high free kick and getting the goal. And then Zach Bailey put here, just putting the Brisbane Lions back in front. And we thought maybe how far the Brisbane Lions, but North, to their credit, came back in. And Jack Darling, 2 goals in that last quarter. Who would have thought, Jimmy, that he was the one that took the line? And Cam Rayner, this is when we thought, I think Brisbane are getting across the line. A point, Brisbane are in front. Zerhard takes a really good mark. And, you know, he almost kicked this out of bounds on the full. Luckily scraped in for a point. And the scenes of the final siren, I think, from North Melbourne point of view, it was a gutsy draw, so to speak. But we're going to go to a bit more footage here of how they could have won it, Jimmy. Yeah,
so Hurdy, Jimmy, who would have thought that a team like North Melbourne that hasn't won more than 5 games since 2019 could draw with the reigning premiers? Like, that just tells us how even this competition was. Tell us how it played out.
Yeah, well, they were 20 points down at half-time, and I think they started to win it around the stoppage and clearance, and we'll touch on Tristan Sherry's game a little bit later, but he was the one, or the catalyst in the second half. He started to get really physical, and I think everybody else started to join in, and then they got proactive around the ball. Charlie Combin's position behind the footy was really proactive, started to go for some marks, and they just built belief in the game. And as Hurdy touched on, last week and this week, they've done so much right, and probably haven't spent a lot of time, let's be honest, in the last couple of years on how to close out games. That's the big educational piece now for Alistair Clarkson. Where do we need to be when we're trying to win the game? And it's a different mindset. So I reckon with about 4 minutes ago, they had lots of opportunities to go win the game, still a little bit protective, but then in the last 90 seconds they had an opportunity, but just didn't quite get it right.
So did they stuff this up, Hurdy, this last moment?
I don't think they stuffed it up. It was a really good intercept mark here that we'll see, and really simple intercept mark here, and they need to take this to the other side. Brings it back to the other side, which is exactly the right play. And this is a really good piece of play here. You see Jacob Sandy here, and we just pause it now. Jimmy, what should he do?
So that's Stevenson who's run that pattern. So he's in front of Costanti there. That angle is really good. Now you're playing 2-on-1. This is the drill you do 1,000 times in warm-up. So Costanti here, you should never lose possession of the footy, and the world's your oyster. You could go all the way and break it, the Telstra logo.
Look at the space in front of him. He's got 50 metres in front of him, all that space in front of him. You have to take up that space to get that shot of goal, because all he needs a point.
Yeah, so what you want to do, Zach Bailey, I think, is the Lions player, is if he's not going to commit to anyone, Costanti runs at him. I know that sounds really silly, but he actually forces Bailey to commit. You go, are you coming to me? Or are you going to still keep running the pattern with Stevenson going across? Because if he goes with Stevenson, he just keeps taking the ground in front of him. He runs through 50. If he commits to you, the forward handball, and then Stevenson can straighten up. So it's the 2v1 game that we've all done since we were little tackers.
And then that goes to show that I think North have done a lot right. I mean, you look at the contested numbers they had this week. Brisbane absolutely smacked the Suns last week. They beat up the third or fourth best team in the competition. North stayed with them. And then little things that could change the game. That's a tiny bit on the edge. You can just see the North Melbourne players getting confidence time after time after time, and that was a real win, although it was a draw.
Yeah, just something to improve on. And as I mentioned, from half-time, 40 points, 20 points, not getting much going, North Melbourne. And Tristan Sherry has all year has been the physical presence in the centre bounce. And look at this, especially his second half. And it was the type of ruck work where he just clattered into Big O and anybody else who wanted some. He just clattered into him. The ball dropped and he had so much clearance work, and he started to win the territory game for North Melbourne. He was fantastic. He nearly had the chance to be part of that last 2 minutes and win it a couple of times for North, but a magnificent effort in the ruck.
Word on Brisbane, top of the ladder after today's draw. What are your thoughts on the way they're going at the moment?
I think they're still going really well. I think they weren't on as they were. I think they had a big game against the Suns, a bit of a letdown. Their midfield didn't play, wasn't as contested. Lachie Neale didn't dominate as he has done. It's not criticism on him totally, but the team just didn't play as well. But they're going really well. I think they're still the premiership favourite, and they'll get back to Brisbane, lick their wounds and go again next week. But you look at, if I was North Melbourne, the language around North Melbourne earlier in the year when they lost those games was pretty poor. Everyone was like, North Melbourne haven't improved at all. I'd say there's definite improvement there.
Yeah, and you've been a big believer of North Melbourne since the start, so that's something to look out for the rest of the year, how the Roos play and how Jimmy Bartell analyses them, of course, being glass half full. Tell you what else is glass half full, that's my attitude towards the show tomorrow night, players. We've got Harry Sheasel on the show with Felix von Hoff, of course, and Cam Rayner from the Brisbane Lions, so they'll be talking about today's game, no doubt, among a myriad of other issues. And what about this, Kev? Harley Reid is on the panel in the studio. That's players tomorrow night on YouTube in the evening, and then after Footy Classified on Channel 9.
You're going to be squaring up with a few? There's a few had a crack at him, and Harley, he might have a list, he might read them out.
All right, we'll talk about Harley Reid a little bit later on. Let's talk about the Giants and Geelong. 4 points was the margin. The Giants, again, getting the job done at GMHBA. Both teams are 5-4 now. This was a cracking game. If we thought Collingwood and Geelong was the game of the season last year, this rivaled it absolutely. The key moments, thanks to Lexus of Blackburn, are all yours, Jimmy.
Yeah, it was another belter down there at GMHBA Stadium, and Geelong are probably sick of the Giants coming off losing streaks and playing them there at GMHBA Stadium. They bounced back. The Giants got off to a flyer thanks to Stringer, who was able to show, I guess, the bit of the form that the reason why the Giants wanted him as another option apart from Toby Green and Hogan hitting the scoreboard as well. But the Cats responded as we expected and started to play those positional tricks that Chris Scott likes to do, where Dempsey's on the wing, then Blitzars is somewhere else. I think Bailey Smith and, of course, Max Holmes were fantastic through the middle of the ground. Danger finally got free of Jack Buckley, taking a mark inside 50 and just pulling the set shot. But it came down to the last quarter, of course, and the Cats had a stack of opportunities where they, probably if they had their time again, a little bit of composure with the footy, but set shots here. Stengel normally would knock this over from about 30 metres out. You normally mark that one down as well. But then Riccardi, playing as a second ruck, just tickled this one around the corner, and that was the winning goal for them. Sean Manor has a flying shot. That goes wide. Bit of a mongrel there. He gets another shot later in the game as well. So this is great. I actually think this is very clever from Mark Blitzarves. He actually tried to sneak the ball to Patrick Dangerfield. But I'd back Mark Blitzarves to kick that most times, hit the inside of the goalpost, and the Giants were able to hang on. But some big performances from all the stars. The major ball winners got plenty of the footy.
But it was unlike Geelong. I mean, they normally finish their games down the Cattery and they kick goals there very often, but they really did waste a lot of opportunities that last quarter, didn't they?
Yeah, as we look at them here, like Neil was taking the shot, the clock was running down, so that one you could probably excuse. He's outside 50.
But should he have a shot from there? I mean, should he, or should he have a shot selection? I mean, that's I think they're normally better at centering that up and having a shot from a more kickable spot. Well,
to your point, Hurdy, the error that he made was he didn't even look. He just went back. Himmelberg tries his best to give this back to Geelong, and strangely Patrick Dangerfield looks for the square up and shanks it. He's not the best at kick when he's trying to kick on the run from 20 metres. You normally back him just to break the tackle. We showed this one from Sean Manor. He sprays it wide as well. So they had plenty of looks, and we get another look at this. They both land, and Blitzarves looks and sees it's Dangerfield and goes, "Here, take it, Patrick." But the umpire was on it. That looked like it was through, as we said. But they did enough. The Giants, I think this mark by Lachie Ash is a little bit underrated too in the heat of the game, because Patrick Dangerfield is behind you, and that's strong hands in what would be a little bit slippery conditions at that part of the evening. Ball live here. Manor another shot, but they've got the goalkeeper in place there. The Giants being Jesse Hogan, who rolled behind the footy. And I haven't even mentioned Hogan. 7 goals.
Yeah.
He was incredibly dominant.
Cats just got a bit anxious, I reckon. They just got a bit, wanting to win a little bit too much. And sometimes you just got to relax a little bit because I reckon they had GWS on toast, and they just a bit haphazard with their finish.
At different moments, what the Giants were able to do was they were able to actually break the initial bubble with the forward handball, and that's why Hogan and some other Giants were able to get really free inside forward 50, which left the coning. And when you don't have Tom Stewart as the general back there, they're caught in between whether to quickly roll up or stay back with their direct opponent. And the Giants were able to just get that forward release, which puts the defenders in that no man's land.
Jimmy, tell me why, and you've got a foot in both camps because you're at the Giants as a director, and obviously you had a decorated career at Geelong. Why is it that the Giants play so well at GMHBA? So that's their last 5, 4 of them by 7 points or less. It's a record that other clubs would love to have, but only the Giants have it at the moment. It's the longest streak at GMHBA at the moment.
Yeah, I started to touch on it there. So down at Caninian Park, GMHBA, it becomes a real territory game, and it's forward territory as well. And I mentioned it with the forward handball. And the Giants, who use the term the tsunami, it's about that surging football, but then coming in behind it. So if you move the ball forward, everyone's got to come up behind. So if you do turn it over, because of the skinny ground, you can trap opposition inside their back 50 or your forward 50. So the Giants win the territory really well against the Cats down there. And then they've got some talent for the footy. On Toby Green and Hogan today, but in the past it's been Toby as the one out as a small forward as well. And then you've got to be really physical in the contest. Because to be able to surge the ball forward, you've got to be super good in the contest and be able to chain the footy out. And
it's the ability for GWS to come through the corridor and actually break the line, instead break that bubble. Finn Callahan today a couple of times was able to get through the line, through the corridor and get it over the back of Geelong when they can't zone off and get the extra man behind the ball. If you can do that against Geelong through the corridor, which everyone wants to go wide, gets caught with the skinny ground, but Geelong seemed to come through the corridor all the time, and GWS today went through the corridor more often than other teams do. The error that most teams make is they're so fascinated by... Tom, here we go. We're going to get it. We're actually going to get into it a bit. The secret sauce. Everyone gets so fascinated by the lack of width. Where Geelong actually gets you is the distance of the ground. And Hurdy started to touch on it, is if you get through, that last defender is now really short because they actually just set up thinking you're going to quick kick it out. So you actually come forward, and that one that you highlighted, Finn Callahan, because he got through, all of a sudden most of Geelong's defence is now almost behind you. And the other thing about it is where you kick the last ball inside forward 50, it's a bit further away than you think. You look at the back of the square and then the 50, that gap's a bit bigger than most other grounds. A lot of sides kick the ball from behind the logo, and that is Geelong winger rolling around. Bounces straight back and it comes back out on the rebound. If you can take your entry in front of those Toyota logos and get it deep, you're either going to get a good result or you're going to trap it in. So the bit you should focus on as an opposition team is get it to that launch zone. Don't kick it earlier. Fascinating. So we finally got it. We finally got it out of a Geelong person. What the secret is. Taken 9 weeks. About time. There we go. Jesse Hogan, what's he worth on the open market? Is he underpaid or not?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's a Coleman medalist and he's kicked 7 goals today against Geelong. He's playing like a $1.2, $1.3 million player on current money. Now, we know a lot of money gets reserved for potential and he's a bit older, but he has to be the most dangerous key forward in the competition at the moment, doesn't he?
The confidence he must have got out of last year, just to see the way he grabs the ball. And last year, towards the end of last year, where he was grabbing the ball, one touch, it was a vice-like grip. But his goal kicking now, he very rarely misses. He's having a lot of his shots from within 30 or 40 and where he should be having shots from. But this guy's just getting better and better and better. I hope for his sake and the Giants' sake he avoids injury, because if he does, he'll have another Coleman medal around his neck at the end of the year.
Avoid the toilets on those buses where he broke his finger in the pre-season. A forward who didn't have as good a day today was Jake Stringer for the Giants. I've spoken to the Giants just a few minutes ago. They believe it's a minor hamstring on the other leg to the one he hurt in pre-season. He'd never done a hamstring before February. He's now down 2 in 3 months. You'd imagine he'd miss at least a couple of weeks.
He started very well.
He started really well.
2 goals, and I thought it was the Jake Stringer show early in the game. But he and Jesse Hogan, if they can get together, because it was interesting, Toby Green started in the centre square against Cameron today. That was great to see 2 old teammates in there. But they're playing Toby further up the ground, which allows those 2 to play. But looks like for the next 4 or 5 weeks, he won't be there.
A shootout at GMHBA was an absolute cracker. Yes, I think the Showdown was the hottest hand of the round, thanks to Lexus of Blackburn. You can take your pick there. Connor Rosie was the player of the match, or best on ground. Mark Keane's mark at the very end. But Rosie, in a losing team, Jimmy, had a day out, and he's the first person to win the Showdown medal outright in a losing team in the game's history.
Yeah, he was dynamic. He was across half-back, but half-back was pretty much the spot he started just for the centre bounce. Then he went wherever he wanted to be. He still hits the scoreboard. But man up the other end, or actually his end, if you're starting in half-back, Riley Thilthorpe, key forward there for the Crows. Just when he marks the football, and he's so strong. He never gives away his height, Hurdy. No. He's physical. He's imposing. It looks like a tennis ball in his hands when he marks it. His mitts are that big. There's none of this double grab sort of stuff. He just clonks them. He
does, and his athleticism for a 201 centimetre player is quite incredible. Yeah. But he is a man mountain. It just shows how big the footballers are getting. But you're right, those hands, when the ball lands in them, I mean, it makes our hands look like tiny little. I won't say what they are, but
you know that Grippo set you always used to get under the Christmas tree around summertime where you pull the tennis ball off. It'd be like that out of his hands. Like, he just holds his position so well.
As big and as well as he's playing is the way they kick it to him to the favoured side. You're going to go into how they kick it to him shortly, but if you can kick it just slightly to his favoured side, to the centre, to his favoured side, he's very hard to beat.
Yeah, and Adelaide were dominant when they had the ball as well. Port Adelaide, though, Hurdy, let's talk about them. Yep. They dominated much of the match when it comes to the stat sheet, but they couldn't get the result. And it was one of those games where you just couldn't quite believe the scoreboard, given, especially in the last quarter, how much Port owned the territory.
Yeah, well, they did, and they should have won. If you look at these numbers, clearances are 56 to 29, inside 50, 62 to 41. Their 22 sides have won inside 50s plus clearances in the last decade, and only 3 have lost, including Port. With those sort of numbers, Jimmy, you should really win the game. It does show you breaking down going into your forward 50.
Yeah, efficiency, last kick going inside forward 50, and a man who helped Adelaide's in particular is Isaac Rankin. Everything he touched turns to gold, and it's not going to be the first or last time that we've said this. But I just love how he, Hurdy, you and I were touching when we were looking at these edits, how he can just open his body up. But that's a handball which a lot of players don't actually take care. He values his possession. Look at this, he sees the one inside, opens the shoulders. Some players are just blaze away. And you and I love this kick. He noticed the hand go up from Thilthorpe and just put it to his advantage. It's just smart football. It's maximising your possessions so they count. So if you see a player there, lead him into the safe space.
It's probably too hard to go back to that last kick, the one the Rankin kick. But as he kicks it, he sees to put it to the favoured side, but you see him open his body up at the last minute. Like it's such a fine margin that I reckon only 10% of players in the competition, 5% of players in the competition see, but it makes the difference between a goal or a ball that's hit in for a rush behind.
Here it is, and you don't have to. You notice he doesn't overkick it.
Just bang. He's at the last minute. If that goes to the middle of the ground, it's sprawled through. It's taken for a mark. It's such a people underrate it, but Kevin Sheedy, when he was coaching us with younger players, used to stop the video, rewind, fast forward. He spent hours over one kick.
Yeah.
This is where I want it. You haven't kicked it there. And that's the sort of, I mean, it comes naturally to him, I think. But that's the difference between great players and good players.
And 2 trades we probably underrate in recent years is Jordan Dawson from Sydney to Adelaide and Isaac Rankin from Gold Coast to Adelaide, 2 critical players for them. So the Crows are 6-3, starting to move a bit. Port are 4-5 with some key questions. Plenty of questions around the MCG game today, gents. Richmond by 2 points. It was an amazing contest in the end. A game that had minimal consequence, had all the highlights. Hurdy, take us through the Lexus of Blackburn key moments.
Yeah, I think when we looked at the Sunday's calendar with Richmond, West Coast and North Melbourne, Brisbane, you thought, well, there's only one good game, and that's GWS and Geelong. But this game really lived up to lived up to a great standard. If you look at the start here, you got Tom Lynch and Harley Reid having a few words. 2 bulls in the pen, just fighting it out for a bit of supremacy, and then we see the West Coast Richmond players just bossing around. Harley Reid had one of his better games of the year, kicking a goal on the run from outside 50, give West Coast the lead, and you see Richmond coming back into the game. Reid giving away, he did some good things, but gave away 50 to Ralph Smith to put the Tigers back in front. I think, Jimmy, from my point of view, both sides can come away from this game with a lot of positives.
Yeah, I think their confidence was up because both of them thought there was an opportunity to win, and they were generally into the game. The good thing for both sides, and actually Richmond's senior players have been pretty solid all year, but finally Baker and Graham joined in for West Coast with their energy and effort. I think Graham's tried to apply a lot of defensive pressure. And that was great to see from Tom Lynch. A big towering mark. It's been a while since we've seen that because his body has let him down a bit.
And this is the moment of the game, the Tom Brown rundown from behind. What a great rundown. He's made a mistake early and bang, tackle of the year, I think.
Yeah, Tom Brown playing his 28th game to do that. really helped the Tigers get the job done. 15 lead changes as well in this game,
Yeah,
up and down, topsy-turvy. Just a great MCG Sunday contest.
Well, I've got to say, I was watching that game, then when the GWS Geelong game, I switched over, and then I was looking at the scores, and I better go back to that one.
I couldn't switch off.
Just have a look at this tackle again. Tom Brown running down Tom Gross from West Coast at a crucial time of the match, clearly with 30 seconds remaining. One of those moments that they'll replay time and time again, the tackle of the year. And it actually happened earlier in the match as well with Tom Gross in the last quarter. But that's Andrew McQualter. Just, oh God, Hurdy, what is that feeling like in the coach's box when you can't control what's going on?
Well, he hadn't had a win yet. You can see that he wanted it, but Tom Gross just needs to get some, awareness on the ground. And he's a young player, but just that bounce, if we can go back and show it, there's no need to bounce the ball. You can get another 5 or 6 metres. You can get away from the tackle and then kick it with composure. He'll learn it. He'll get it in his game, but. Jimmy, there's normally when you're playing and you're out in space, there's 18 opposition players trying to tackle you or stop you doing something, and you learn pretty quickly in the AF football. They're all pretty good at it. They're
all coming for you because they've all got jobs and paychecks as well.
This is the other one where he wasn't quite aware of what was coming, and you can see there's 6 minutes remaining.
The thing I do like though is trying to take the game forward.
Yes.
So
doesn't need a bounce.
Doesn't need a bounce. So what McQualter and whoever his assistant coach is the decision is right. You've just got to do it with more urgency and intent. Even the other one that was on the wing. And that's where you learn, hey, I've received it pretty still. You've probably got to take that side step off the line because if you go in that straight line, your direct opponent's just going to come for you. So this one, he just doesn't need to throw the bounce. And even that, if you just change your angle as soon as you receive the ball, you become very difficult to tackle, but encourage him to keep going for it.
There's a pretty good chance that'll never happen to him again. Or if he should learn from that.
Yeah, it's his 4th game, and we're not hanging him out to dry at all.
Not at all.
An amazing moment in general and a great moment for Tom Brown. This was Tom Gross after the match talking... Tom Brown after the match talking about that moment.
Well, I came forward in the centre and I missed the body sport, so I really had no choice. If I didn't chase him down, I was getting smoked in the review, so yeah, had no choice at all.
They get a handball receive, and for that split second, he might have felt like he cost us the game. So for him to dig in and then a chase and then obviously get the reward for effort is exactly what these boys are going through. And right now, he's at a point where he understands the game and he's belonging on an AFL field.
It's a moment that we replayed a lot as the year goes on and at the end of the year as well. So 3rd win for the Tigers. That's one more than last year. Already they seem to be just ticking off a few milestones as the season goes on. Harley Reid has been indifferent this year. We've spoken about him a lot on this panel. You can see here that he's been inconsistent across the journey. But if we're going to criticise him when he plays poorly as a #1 pick, we've got to give him his flowers when he plays well. According to Champion Data today, he was the #2 ranked player on the field.
Playing well on his new home ground, they say.
Well, that's right. It's the 2nd time he's played on the MCG. And he was excellent. I know he gave away a few free kicks in the 50-metre penalty, but he had many score involvements and he seemed up for the fight as well, Jimmy.
Yeah, he wanted to take the game on. We saw a couple of stiff arms get there. He got pinged one for running too far when the game was in the balance, but I thought he was pretty good today.
Big questions around West Coast going forward as well. They haven't won a game. Oscar Allen, of course, was a late withdrawal with that knee injury. All right, after the break, the missing ingredients for the Dogs and the Suns, plus plenty more on Footy Furnace. So much action across the weekend. Stay with us. Hurdy, Brady Hotels are the best value stay in Melbourne's CBD. All of these hotels are walking distance to the MCG and Marvel Stadium, ideal for footy fans heading into the city.
Flinders Street Hotel and Apartments, close to Marvel Stadium, Crown Casino and Southern Cross Station, Tom.
And also one at Central Melbourne Hotel, surrounded by Melbourne's best bars and restaurants. We know you love that.
Yeah, Hardware Lane Hotels and Apartments, perfect for a mate's weekend for you, Tom, or a family trip away.
And Jones Lane Hotel, affordable rooms for sporting fans, great value and location. Brady Hotels, the ultimate game day base in Melbourne, close to the MCG and close to Marvel Stadium. Let's go to Marvel Stadium last night. I guess it was an upset of sorts, unless you're looking at the ladder. Essendon has won 5 of its last 6. The margin here was 8 points, Hurdy, and they're playing some reasonable footy. They had plenty of young players in the team, despite an ACL for one of their debutants, and they made the Swans work, especially in the first half.
They did, and they've got a lot of injuries, so they're performing very well. I think everyone thought that the Swans would probably get to them, and the Swans probably wasted some chances. But who I want to talk about is Zach Reid. Zach Reid in his 5th season, 17 games, only had 1 goal kicked on him since round 3, which is pretty amazing. 20 disposal at half-time. There was a period in that first quarter where anything that went into the Swans forward line, he was marking. highly criticised, injury prone, but I'm so glad to see that his career is now well and truly on track. And as a defender, not much gets past him. And for the Essendon Football Club, they have a 200-centimetre key defender like that in Zach Reid and Nate Caddy up the other end. It's pretty exciting times for what they've done with the list.
And he can use the footy really well. And their defence as well, Hurdy. You and I keep looking at it going, where are they getting the extra number from? And some sides like to actually start, with a number that rolls around, whether they come off the wing or, they get someone to drop back in general play. But it seemed like they had a really good structure against the Swans. But the structure worked for the guys like Zach Reid and others is because they allowed the spare to be spare. And by that I mean is when we looked at Reid's highlights there as well, he used his direct opponent as a starting point. He wasn't playing 20 metres off him. Nick Martin rolled right up around the ground.
Yeah, 37 possessions, Nick Martin.
Yeah, so he started as a half-forward a lot, or up the ground and then rolled around, and this just created all sorts of confusion for the Swans.
And those numbers are since Adelaide. So they got really 160 points, I think, against Adelaide. And we were very critical. I think everyone was critical of their defence, but they've turned it around, and it's a real credit to them. And guys like Reid are getting the just desserts.
Keeping their back six intact more, which means when the ball goes flying up and down the ground, just make sure you have a bit of structure behind the ball.
At the other end was the Swans. The Swans, they had a poor first half and they came back and gave a really. You got to say they gave a really good effort the second half. But my God, did they butcher some inside 50s? And Tom, you talked just before about their 50 metres they gave away. I mean, that's soul destroying. 3 inside 50s, three 50-metre penalties that give away goals, and then was it 7 in total?
Yeah, 7 in total as well. But this is the way they're moving the ball, and this is un-Sydney-like from what we've seen in the past. How does that happen, and why does it happen?
They've lost a bit of confidence, and then obviously some people out of the side. But you have a look at all them; they're blasting it forward. And we just mentioned the Bombers, whether it's Mackay, it was Reid, or forward rolling up around the footy. If you have that anchored defender and you just blast the ball, well, in today's footy, you might as well just go hand it back at the half-back line, and that's what they did. So just lost a bit of composure with ball in hand, the Swans.
What does the lack of discipline tell us about the Sydney Swans at the moment? 7 50-metre penalties against them. Essendon only kicked 3 goals in the first quarter. Yeah. All 3 were directly because of those penalties.
I think that they're desperate to win. I think that there's a bit of pressure. They made the grand final last year. Their second half of the year wasn't as good. So there's a bit of pressure coming on. The free kicks, I don't think, are a result of poor discipline. I think it's actually they're desperate to do something good. And for desperation, you can do some silly things.
You mentioned Zach Reid, and then the other big guy down the other end, young and emerging, Nate Caddy.
Nate Caddy, he's had a terrific start to the year. And there's a bit of vision here. We just want to show that there's a good bit of vision here for Nate Caddy. And just see him run. And we also saw it with McCartan. We'll go back and show. Look when Nate Caddy gets the ball. Watch him run. This is Cameron-like from Geelong. I mean, we're not comparing him to Cameron at the moment, but watch him just keep running to get himself into play and get in the goal square. And his opponent, McCartan, has just watched him go all the way past him. Bang. That's the sort of play that's the work rate and the work ethic that gets you to really a star in the competition. That's, winning the ball at half-back, running all the way down, getting a goal at forward line. That is elite running, and well done to Nate Caddy.
He was picked 10 for a reason. Essendon fans love him. He's kicked 2, 2 and 3 in his last 3 games, and he's just starting to show why he was such a high draft pick. So Essendon playing some good footy. So are the Gold Coast Suns.
Yes.
And in Darwin last night, they defeated the Western Bulldogs. It looked as if the margin would be 20 or 30 points. In the end, it was just 10 because the Dogs came back late. But it was their 7th straight win in Darwin, the Gold Coast Suns. So they love playing up there. They love those conditions. Can we just talk about the Dogs first briefly, though? What do you make of how they're travelling, and more specifically, how their forward line is operating?
Look, I think they're travelling really well, but the forward line has had to be small, and I think it gets to the point a small forward line is good for a certain amount of time. But if you don't have those key forwards you can kick to, just to get yourself out of trouble, really quality key forwards, it's pretty obvious they're missing Jamara, they're missing Darcy, they're doing a great job with the small forwards, but I bet you they'd love one of those tall targets up there at the moment, Jimmy.
Even Cody Wakeman as a small plays really tall. He can launch it at the footy. But I think, Tom, I know where you're going with the question, but I think it actually said a bit more about the Suns. Of course, the Dogs midfield, we're praised. The Suns midfield matched it with them. The Dogs kept coming at them, but the big difference with the Suns this year at the moment that we're seeing, and hopefully they can hold it for the rest of the year, is they're actually gritting down on the mouthguard, and when the opposition comes at them, they've been able to fight back in the contest.
It does show to me, though, the difference between the Suns' midfield last week got beaten up by Brisbane. Brisbane got this midfield, and it looked like really the Suns really only had Anderson, Rao, Miller, and a bit of Humphrey coming through. There's a continuous rotation of those players. Against the Bulldogs, they're able to pretty much rotate those same players through and get the Bulldogs. That shows to me the fine margins at the top end of those elite midfields compared Brisbane, Gold Coast, and Western Bulldogs. Western Bulldogs are still a way off Brisbane, and Gold Coast are getting closer. But if I was Damien Hardwick, I'd be looking for another one or two I can put in that midfield for that mix, because you can't just keep going back to the well.
Is it a Noble?
No, it's Flanders for me.
Yep.
Flanders' form last year was excellent.
Yep.
He's one who can play through the midfield and be dynamic. And can he be part of that different mix? Because he can actually complement what Rao does really well, and Anderson through the midfield, and Miller. Because if Miller at different times is going to have to do a run with role, like a play on, play off, the opposition's best when we get to the pointy end, you still want that dynamic ball mover, ball player through the middle of the ground.
Because you look at Brisbane, they've got 6 or 7 and go through. Geelong have got 10 potentially to go through. Collingwood got 6 or 7. Hawthorn got 6 or 7. You need the 6 or 7 to go through, so they've got the same looks.
Especially if one of the two of those gets injured as well. You need to have that depth. The road to 16, we're starting to call it now. It was the road to 13 with the Gold Coast Suns. I think they have every chance to finish in the top 4. They've got lots of games at home. They've got a nice draw. There's no excuse now for them not to win another 10 games and win 16 for the season.
You haven't learned, have you? You haven't learned. If I had to get to 13, that was my mark. Why are you setting at 16?
Well, look at them.
Anything can go wrong here.
Just let them get to a place they've never been before you said 16.
I remember our goal was always to qualify with enough games to play finals. It was 11 or 12 back when we were playing. As soon as you got to 12, you breathed a bit easier. Don't set the bar at 16.
Well, you're far more measured than I am. I'm all on the Suns train at the moment. The Western Bulldogs are one of 3 teams to be 5 and 4. The others are Geelong and GWS. They're in a really interesting pack on the ladder. I just want you to tell me what you think of the Dogs at the moment and how they're going, because their losses haven't been heavy. They've been in every single game. They've lost to some good teams. And then, of course, they've performed really well in other games where they've won big. They seem to me, and I said it last week, they appear better than a 5 and 4 team, but they're still 5 and 4. So what are they missing?
They are 5 and 4. They've lost to really good teams. In previous years, they've lost to poorer teams. Like, they've had some really poor losses and they've had to catch up at the end of the year. I still think they're missing 1 or 2 through the midfield. And I'm not being stupid. I'm not being obvious, but they're missing that key forward target that they've got 2 of them, and one of them hopefully will come back in a few weeks' time.